Adam and Alex discuss how Ratchet and Clank for the PS5 will use the DualSense controller to its fullest extent, inform you about the upcoming PS5 titles, and drop a huge load in your ear about Nier Automata, all on episode 19 of PlayPS5, the podcast.
All right, welcome to episode 19 of Play PS5, the podcast. In this, listen, there's not much going on in the PS5 world right now. We're all kind of sitting around waiting for some imminent launches. So this is going to be a Play PS5 jam session, more or less. Adam and I are we're just gonna riff, all right, just straight riffing. So don't get tired. Don't expect big things from us. But sometimes this is where the golden nuggets come out. This is where Adam drops his load on us. Adam, how are you doing today?
My load's been building for a week. Be prepared to see the biggest load that you've ever seen in your life.
It's a great load to be.
I'm going to drop a load in your ear is what I'm going to do. Are you prepared, listener, to listen to this load? Because it's it's going to be a lot. I am excited, Alex. We're going to put some PS5 things right off the bat here in the podcast because obvious reasons. And then at the end, we want to talk about our Power A Play of the Week, which is actually Nier Automata. I know it's not a PS5 game, but it's a game that both of us have begun playing. It is very, very quickly jumped to my favorite singular game, I think, of all time. So we'll talk about that. First, Alex, I want to know what you are drinking for your gamer juice tonight.
I just got back from a kid's birthday party where I drank a lot of energy drinks and drank some bottled water and drank some pool water on accident. And now I'm trying to drink caffeine water just to keep myself awake from that. So nothing special tonight, man. I just didn't have the time to run to the come and go. I'm doing you dirty. What are you drinking?
Well, we aren't doing video tonight, so the audience won't be able to see, but in my glass, there is a hearty full of nothing because that's what mine is, because Alex is 2 hours late from starting the podcast. So I already drank my gamer juice.
And Adam's going to wet the bed if he drinks after 9 o'clock. Yeah,
that's right. I don't even have to put my fingers in warm water. I wet the bed either way. Okay. So the first thing I want to dive into is I've made it pretty clear that possibly my favorite part of the PS5 is the DualSense controller. It is absolutely incredible. The one thing, and I wonder if you see this too, Alex, I noticed that my hand sweats more with this controller than it did with the DualShock. Is that just something that's me? Have you noticed that?
When did you notice that starting? Was it recently, like in the past couple of weeks, maybe?
No, it was immediately, even with Astrobot's Playroom.
I was going to say maybe 2B on Nier was making you horny and that caused your hands to sweat. I don't see too much of an issue with it. I think here's my thought. It's got that finer grip towards the bottom of it, which means you have a bit of a less secure hold than you would on the more rounded DualShock 3. And so while my hands probably sweat about the same amount, the controller is more prone to potentially slipping out of my hands. So I think that might be why you notice it more. I don't have particularly sweaty hands. But everybody else I know does, so I don't know what that's about. What do you do with sweaty hands? Do you just have grime all over your controller?
No. I mean, it's not bad. I just know, like, I've never remembered playing the DualShock and me being like, oh man, my hands are starting to get a little sweaty. And with this, it does. I mean, I just wipe it on my pants and I'm fine. It's not like but the controller is wet or sweat is dripping. It's the only odd, it's not even that big of a negative, but it's just a weird repercussion of the controller.
The disgusting game that I used to play with my controller, my DualShock 3, I think, for the PS3, when I would play Elder Scrolls Oblivion, they'd have these long load times. And during the load times, I would take a paper clip and where the controller like kind of clamshells together on the sides, I would run like a paper clip or like a piece of paper through the little groove of the clamshell, and it would scrape out all the dead skin and sweat that had accumulated over me playing the game. And it was always a whole lot, and it was disgusting.
That sounds disgusting.
Yeah, you'd get like a nice flesh. It'd be like a worm like a flesh-colored worm working its way out of the controller.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
let's move forward because that's disgusting.
Tell me more about your
Wow.
flesh-colored worm, Adam.
Did one also come out of your butthole? That flesh-colored worm?
No,
Probably.
Adam. Gross.
Sicko.
Yeah.
You sit there. I bet you have ringworm, don't you? Anyhow, the controller, people are still learning new things about the controller, and I will admit I am too. And a couple things that some Redditors noticed, just fun little tidbits, is that if you hold the PS button for 10 seconds, it turns the controller off. I will admit, I didn't really know how to turn the controller off. When I want the controller off, I want the whole console off. So obviously it's easy to do then. Fun little thing. And then the final little tidbit that I learned is that I knew you could mute yourself, but you could mute all audio using the button that is underneath the PS button if you hold it for 2 seconds. So, for example, Alex, you, me, and Will were playing Borderlands 3, and there was a point where I needed to talk to my parents on the phone, so I muted myself. But as I was talking to them, I kept hearing you and Will, your banter, and you're just horribly awkward and pretty much you made fun of me the whole time. But I kept hearing that because it was through my controller. And I didn't know how to get rid of it. Now I know if I hold that button for 2 seconds, it's going to take your audio away as well. So those two things, do you care? Did you know about them? Or do you think we're still going to learn more about this controller moving forward?
Well, how are your parents doing, Adam? Are they all right?
Yeah, they, like I mentioned to you, they thought the struts were broken on their car. And actually, that wasn't the case. Dude worked on it for like 2 hours, fixed the car. I won't say good as new, but I mean, it's fine. It was a relatively cheap fix. So they got lucky big time.
Good. As far as the controller, I did not know those things about the controller, but I'm much like you. I turn off the controller when I'm done with the console, so I don't really have a need to turn off the controller without the console. I don't know about you. I still have not gotten used to the functionality of like the PlayStation button. You know, I'm really used to holding it down to go to like the power menu or just lightly pressing it to go to the game menu. And it seems like the PlayStation 5 works in the opposite, where like you tap it to go to like the power settings, or you hold it down to go to like just it. I've never gotten used to it. It always takes me like 2 or 3 attempts to get to where I want to go. I'm not a huge fan of that. The muting thing is nice to know, although I wonder next time it comes where I need to mute something, I don't know if I'm going to remember that. Luckily, I've been using the PlayStation headset that cost $1 bajillion, and I got like an idiot. That all the sound's coming through that now, so I don't got to worry about it. Don't got to worry about it. Nobody hears me playing my PlayStation.
If you have to remember, like, oh, I have to hold this down, but how long? Just remember about how long you last in the sack. 1, 2, boom, done. So there you go.
Ray tracing on Borderlands.
Ray tracing on Borderlands 3. Oh, it's so funny. Oh my! I listened to that episode, a couple weeks back, just at work, and dude, I cackled in my office. So funny. That was one of my favorite lines you have ever uttered. So the reason we mentioned the DualSense, not only because it's awesome, but also Ratchet and Clank. Some people interviewed Insomniac Games, and they were talking about how they were going to utilize the controller to its fullest extent, which I am thrilled with, because when we have seen it used to that extent, it has been magical. So I'm going to read to you what the 3 things they mentioned they're going to do, and you give me a level of excitement that you are in relation to that game. So first, they will use custom functions for the adaptive triggers. Now, I know that's pretty general, but the fact that they're going to use those adaptive triggers at all, does that excite you? Do you think that will make this game more playable?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking like, here's what would be cool. Because the guns always have like alternate fire. So if you have like lightly pulling the trigger to like shoot the bullet, and then, for example, pull down the trigger to that second layer and it launches a grenade out or something like that from the gun, that would be cool. Things like that. Insomniac's really creative with their weapons in these Ratchet and Clank games. Things like that done would be something that you can only do with adaptive triggers. And so it'd be something you can only do with a DualSense, and it would be really enjoyable and it would feel nice. Like, the feeling of pulling the trigger and having it vibrate to shoot a bunch of bullets from a machine gun, and then you pulling that final click would really add to that, like boom, that like a grenade being launched would feel like. So that's your point. I'm excited about that mostly because of the developer that's doing it. But I could see how that would be really enjoyable. I wonder how much diversity is possible with the adaptive triggers, but I'll leave it to them to show me.
True. Another thing they mentioned is that they are going to use the haptic feedback to diversify the feel of weapons. What do you think about that?
Again, I wonder to what degree they'll be able to do that. However, I've seen it in Demon Souls. The haptic feedback works really well. Like, for example, there's a spell that you cast where you kind of surround yourself in like a veil of water, so you have this flame resistance, and the controller really feels like, say you were holding like a plate and then you held it outside while it was raining and you'd feel each pitter patter of the rain. The controller feels like that. It's a really nice effect, and it always surprises me, and I always appreciate it. So if they could do, 20 different variations of something that effective, awesome. I'm down for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that could definitely be cool. I like the fact that all the weapons, or most of them, or at least, are going to feel different. And finally, what they mentioned is that the DualSense haptics and speakers will be married in interesting ways. Again, very broad and general, but what do you think about that?
I have no idea what they mean by that. I'm trying to think of how the haptics and the speakers will work together beyond just having something like sounds like the gun's overheating when your controller goes beep, 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 something like that. Maybe. I don't know how that would tie into the haptics in an interesting way. It really just sounds like the controller is going to rumble to mimic like a bass effect, which cool, but that doesn't get me going.
Yeah, originally, I wouldn't really think much. I'd be like, okay, well, whatever. But after playing Bug Snacks, and when you caught each of the little bug snacks and it made that little noise in the speaker, that, for whatever reason, really added to my enjoyment. And that makes me think that little things like that we take for granted, that we don't think about, could really make a difference in some of the gameplay. So maybe if you're, I don't know, have a weapon and you're trying to like lasso an enemy, I guess it's kind of what you mentioned. You could feel the haptics as they're trying to run away, and you feel the rope tightening or something like that. And then obviously it's making a bunch of noise. Maybe you're hearing the rope stretch or something. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. It's pretty general, but overall, I'm very excited. The fact that they admitted they are going to use the DualSense, the fact that they mentioned to the fullest extent, it's good. I mean, to me, it's not worth the DualSense if you're just gonna have, it rumble slightly differently than the DualShock would. But it seems like all of those features of the controller excites me and makes me want to play it even more than I did before.
Yeah. Adam, you mentioned Bug Snacks. Did we talk about just how nice it was that Bug Snacks came out? And it was just this nice little morsel of a game that had no business being as good as it was. I just kind of want to reminisce for a second. Just nice little treat, I have fond memories of it now. And now my daughter's practicing drawing faces, and they all look like Bug Snacks characters. I don't know what that's about.
Oh, dude. Awesome. Yes.
Yeah. I get these, what are they called? Grampuses. I get pictures of those all the time. It's awesome. Wampus, is that what they are? Wampus?
Wampus is a character. They're a Grumpus. They're all
Grumpus.
Yeah.
All her facial drawings look like Grumpuses, and I'm here for it, man. It's awesome.
Dude, that is awesome. Fantastic. Okay, so I want you to talk to me a little bit about Hitman 3 here coming.
Yeah, so Hitman 3, if you have PlayStation Plus, if you're a longtime PlayStation Plus person, you know all about the Hitman series, because Hitman 1 and 2, so Hitman 1 and 2 were free on PlayStation Plus, so we all have access to it. I never played them, but I've heard great things about them. I know what Hitman's about. I know it's a game I really like. I just never get around to playing it because I'm that kind of guy. Adam, I know you haven't played any of the Hitman games. Hitman 1 was like a reboot, refresh of the series, and they made it even better. When Hitman 1 came out, they would release like one level at a time. The idea being that you have a target you got to kill, and then you spend a lot of time going through the level and thinking of different ways to kill the target and stuff. And then kind of like how they were doing episodic content. They'd release another level like a week later, so you could spend a lot of time playing that level. That had mixed results. So I think Hitman 2, they just kind of released it all at once again. Hitman 3 is going to go the same route, but apparently Hitman 3 is going to have more story beats to it. There's supposedly some kind of story that matters. When I played Hitman 2 back on the, in the PlayStation 2 era before the reboot, story didn't seem that important. Everything I saw from the subsequent Hitman games didn't seem that important either. But people that I know who are fans of the series seem excited about the story here. So it might be worth brushing up on what's happening so you can get excited about the story as well. However, Hitman 3 coming out for the PlayStation 5, it's going to have Hitman 1 and 2 with it. So we all had the capability. And also beyond that, it's going to have VR mode. I didn't verify. I should probably do that right now. If it's VR for all 3 of the Hitman games or if it's just for Hitman 3. Let me Google that right now. Adam, do you know anything about the Hitman games?
So the little bit I know, it seems like an interesting concept. I've, like you mentioned, never played it, but in VR, I think that's going to be an absolute treat. My biggest issue is I still don't have a camera. I do have to eat a little crow here. I thought once the PS5 came out, the PS4 and the PS4 cameras and all the subsequent accessories would take a nosedive in terms of price. I have, at least to this point, been incorrect. And I refuse to pay $40 for a PS4 camera. So it looks like will not be playing Hitman 3, at least in VR. And to be honest, I'm not going to just play it without VR. So it may be a little while for me to play Hitman 3, but I am excited. I think in VR, it has the makings to be an absolutely wonderful game.
Yeah, so I looked up here. Apparently it's Hitman 3. Hitman 3 is only VR. 1 and 2 are not VR. Understandable. They kind of probably redid the engine a little bit. When it first was announced, they never mentioned they were going to be using the Move controllers. But as we see footage of the game as it's coming out, it really looks like it would be a move-heavy game where you have characters moving around and pinpointing their shots, obviously not with analog sticks to somebody's head or, reaching out and punching or grabbing things. And even, I'm reading the announcement from IO Interactive talking about, when you're in VR, imagine you've picked up a frying pan and you sneak up on a guard and then you hit them with the frying pan in whatever angle you want to knock them out. And then when people shoot at you, you can deflect bullets with that frying pan as you make your escape. That sounds to me like something that can only be done with Move controllers, unless the DualSense has this amazing, rotation tracking. So, never mind. So right here it says every location in the World of Assassination trilogy can be enjoyed in VR. I don't know if location means that you just kind of get to see it or if location means that you are playing through it. So yeah. The VR component looks incredible. Hitman 3 itself looks incredible. They added, apparently it's kind of got some elements of like Dark Souls, Demon Souls type stuff, which I'm excited about. They say they have shortcuts in the game. So I'm guessing we have a more of an open world experience happening here, which, iteration and implementation of this game design sounds great to me. Adam, these games play less like action games and they play more like puzzle games where it's like you have a guy you got to kill. You got to figure out how to creatively kill that character. Especially without getting caught. Whenever I played the older games, it was always pretty easy to run a gun and blast through everybody, but then that kind of wasn't the point of the game. But it was more interesting to go into the game and do things like dress up as a sushi chef and sneak your way into the kitchen and then sneak your way to be the guy at the table and then poison the sushi and then feed it to the guy. And then as you walk away, you find out the guy died. And that's just kind of like, oh, wow, I'm such a badass. Nobody even saw me do that. So this Hitman game, it's kind of like that stuff. You really can go about it the way that you see fit. And in VR mode, it's going to have even more possibilities. So I'm excited about it. January 20th is probably the next big release coming out. So there's not much else to get excited about. We're looking at probably about 10 days now before it comes out. I got it pre-ordered through Target, so it's probably going to be about 50 days until I get it in the mail, knowing how Target ships.
They suck. They suck.
Yeah, they suck.
Another PS5 related game that is now free for us, at least the PS Plus members, is Man Eater. So the game, looks interesting, like an RPG, shark related RPG, very interesting. A cool thing that Corporate Zombie on our YouTube page mentioned, and I saw some reports of this as well, is if you had purchased Man Eater before the PS Plus news came out, Sony will actually give you a refund for it, which is definitely nice because the PS5 version came out before the PS Plus news. So, I mean, if you're looking for a PS5 game and this is one of the very few games now that has an upgrade for it, you may have purchased it. You can get your money back. I need to jump into this, Alex. I mean, I have relatively a low bar for this game, so I may be pleasantly surprised, but it's free. You got to do it, right?
Yeah. I mean, you got to at least try it if you're looking for something to play and it's free. I think they're doing the refunds with no questions asked, as in some people are just getting it automatically. I think Corporate Zombie said as much, so that's exciting. I got some other games to play. I don't know if I'm going to get around to playing this, but if we need to cover an episode of the podcast talking about these PS Plus games, I think what's the other one? Worms Rumble came out on PS Plus last week. That was a free PS5 game. Hope you grabbed it, Adam. I'm pretty sure I did, and I hear it's got some interesting DualSense stuff. Still, none of these games are free quite yet to get me excited in the way that PS Plus games used to, but it's just nice to have it in the bag.
Yeah, I have not gotten Worms, and I will get Maneater. We'll see. It's hard when you're playing Nier.
Yeah,
but a game that might rival Nier in terms of its goodness is Returnal, and that is coming on March 19th. That is a game, I think, Alex, that both you and I are extremely excited for it to come onto the PS5.
Yeah, speaking about Returnal, Will dropped a comment on us. That guy is Will VR. Said, Returnal looks good. Just from what I've seen so far, I'm not willing to pay much for Returnal, let alone $70. I heard that from Will, and I thought, oh, damn, maybe this game's not going to be that good. But then I watched the new footage that just released recently. I say recently, maybe about 4 weeks ago. And it looks like an extremely high-quality game and a really good game. $70 is a lot to ask for anything. But if we want a PS5 game, you're probably going to have to pay PS5 prices. And I'm going to suck it up because I love Housemarque Studios. And this game looks extremely fun and extremely interesting plot-wise as well. And it feels weird to say I'm just going to pay full price to support the studio because of what they're trying to do. But I remember Housemarque about a year ago had that big announcement saying that they're moving away from arcade-style games and they want to move to bigger games because they just realized that, they pour their heart and soul into these smaller scale indie type games like Nex Machina and Alienation and Helldivers and Gauntlet, and they do all right, but they don't get like tons of reimbursement for it, and it just isn't cost effective. So this is their first attempt at refocusing their entire studio to AAA games. And I like to think that they seem like an honest development studio. I like to think that as an honest development studio, they're going to be charging an honest price for their game, meaning we're going to be getting more out of this game than we got out of their traditional top-down shooter games that they made in the past. Adam, $70. You're the cheapest man I know. How does that make you feel?
I mean, do I want to pay $70? No. Am I going to buy it physical, play it, sell it? Yeah. I don't care. Sell it for $100. Will, I agree with you for the most part, Will, but this one, you're wrong, buddy. He must have been pushing his flesh-colored worm from the controller he's playing on because this game looks incredible. I don't know what he's talking about. It looks like a perfect game for me. I am super excited for it. I will be paying that $70 again. That is why I got the physical edition, because you will sell that physical game back. And instead of paying $70 for Returnal, guess what? I paid $20. And, I don't know. I don't know how long it's going to be, obviously, but trust me, I'm going to make that $20, stretch that till every penny goes, ah! It's crying, by the way.
Oh, moving on. A little bit of news from, I think, Cory Barlog himself. God of War Ragnarok, the hotly anticipated title sequel to the God of War pseudo reboot. It was announced that it's going to be a cross-gen game. It's going to be PS4 and PS5.
Get out of here, boo!
Releasing in 2021. And yeah, Adam, I'm with you. Damn it. I want PS5 games. Cross-gen, whatever. That's cool. I want this to be a system seller. I want this to be that kind of game.
And it would have been. This is it. If there is a game that they have mentioned that is if someone's on the fence that they were like, I don't know if it's really worth it, this is the game. And I don't understand. Is this from a business point of view, in your opinion, is this we don't think we can still meet the stock requirements, so we're going to appease the masses? Or do you just think simply they're going to be able to sell more copies of it being cross-gen, and that's the number one priority?
They're just going to sell more copies. It's going to be, you can sell to a potential base of something absurd like 100 million, or you can sell to a potential base of 5 million. So of course you're going to go for the grand total of 105 million rather than just picking one or the other. The disappointing thing is that means that none of the real intrinsic and essential game design is going to be catering the PS5, the DualSense, anything like that. What we're going to be getting is what we've kind of been getting all along, I guess, is PlayStation 4 games that have a locked-in frame rate at 60 while doing 4K resolution, which is cool. But I'm not one of these, I'm not a resolution hound. I'm not upset. I'm not that upset when the game's not 4K 60. I mean, I went back to playing 4K 30 on Demon Souls because I just wanted the ray tracing effects maximized. I kind of don't regret it. So it's disappointing. I might be eating my words later. Maybe they've already maxed it out for the PlayStation 5 and they're just going to be removing things for PS4, but it just makes it sound like it makes it sound like a PlayStation 4.5 game and not a PlayStation 5 game.
Yeah, I really wish I were a business analyst for Sony because they may be making the right move financially here. I really don't know. But I think it would be interesting, and you're right. Maybe you're selling 10 million copies instead of 5 million, but then some of those people who don't have PS5s, I am certain will have purchased a PS5 by them just because of this game. Like maybe they were on the edge. They were like, I'm thinking about getting it, but this is the last thing that really they needed that push to, okay, I'm without a doubt getting a PS5. So they're making a bunch of money off the selling of the PS5. So they're definitely losing some copies, but then they're gaining some copies from the PS4 people and then money from the PS5. So obviously, I'm sure they've run the numbers. I know they're not stupid people. I'm sure they did this for a reason. They did the math and figured out it would just straight up be better if it's on both. But you're right. I'm very disappointed. Hopefully, you are wrong in the fact that they are going to make it for PS5 and then just strip it down for PS4. But I don't think you are. I think you're correct. I think it's going to be a PlayStation 4.5. And as a PS5 owner, it almost makes me want to have not purchased a PS5 so I could tell Sony, you're a friggin' idiot. What are you doing? It's really, with each passing week and there's no more PS5 titles, it just makes me more, I don't know, upset and angry that they aren't doing what I feel like is best, which of course I know I'm a nobody, but Mark Cerny, get out of my mom's bedroom, walk down the hall. Let me give you an earful. And I'm not talking about one of my beautiful loads. I'm talking about my voice.
Yeah. Opinions. Adam, let's move on to the Powerade Play of the Week, man. Let's talk about it.
So here's the thing. This is a shame, Alex, because I really wish we had a podcast where we could just talk about whole games,
Yeah.
just talk about games in their entirety. To put games in our holes and we can just talk about them, but we don't have that podcast. This is a different podcast, but I had to take the opportunity to talk about Nier Automata. It's a game that you mentioned to me for a while, and I kept reading that it was a game that I should play just because it was kind of odd and strange and the music was really good. And so it's going to be tough. If at any point I start getting in the territory where it's spoiler like, let me know. There might be, if you're listening to this, very minor, slight spoilers from here on out. Definitely not anything big, but I think at some point a spoiler to Alex isn't a spoiler to me. Like there's some subjectivity there. So I'm very happy that I end up playing this game. What would you say if I told you that in a single game in itself, it is now, I think, probably my favorite game of all time? Does that surprise you?
It does surprise me because your taste in games is historically pretty atrocious, and now
Bullcrap.
you're playing a game that I know as being pretty good. So that's why it surprises me is you suddenly become, a decent, you suddenly have a decent palette for video games. Also, though, I mean, in terms of the game, from a game's perspective, I don't know what it is about this game that would make it your favorite game of all time. The little that I know of it, little that I've played of it, it seems really good, but it doesn't seem like anything earth shattering. But as I get deeper, I see things that are really interesting and charming and creative. And then that combined with the things I know you like about weird games like Kingdom Hearts, then I could see where you kind of get a marriage of those two things, where it's got these tight gameplay mechanics and then also this like off the wall Japanese plot and music and just overall weirdness that you seem to latch onto as well.
Yeah, so I want to maybe we can talk about each individual piece of this game. And I would like to take the opportunity to convince the listener here to play this game. That's what my goal here is. So, first thing everyone knows about the music. Music is very good. It's very instrumental. It has a lot of heart and soul into it. Typically, it's type of, I wouldn't say it's necessarily classical music, right? But it's
It's
along
kind
that
of
lines.
it's kind of folk classical, I guess I would imagine. Do you ever listen to the words? So there's vocalizations in the music. You ever listen to the words, Adam? You know what language you're speaking?
No.
It's it's an interesting thing that they hired somebody who was apparently a linguist, some sort of a linguist, and they took, I forget what language they took. They took a language, I think it was like Finnish or something, and then they evolved it over the course of like 1,000 years or 10,000 years, and through some mechanism of the way languages evolved, and then they started writing songs in that language. So if you were to look at the actual words, it would be gibberish, but they've been created through some kind of linguistic design, which kind of goes part and parcel with the plot of the game, where it's far in the future, and we have this language that I guess in the game everybody's speaking English or whatever language you pick because you got to understand what they're saying. But perhaps if that wasn't the case, then they would be speaking this gibberish language, which I thought that was really interesting. It's something they didn't have to do, and it works well. You listen to the music and you feel like you know what they're saying, even though you don't know what they're saying.
See, that every time I play this game, every time I learn something new, I like the game more. And that I didn't know that, and it makes me like the game even more. The music, so there's not a ton of tracks in this game. Like Kingdom Hearts has per game tons. They have got a friggin' million songs per game. This one doesn't. It's got maybe 15, but some of them are like average and other ones are exceptional. So that's what you got to look forward to. I'm not really going to harp on the music. It is very good. Give it a listen. Although I will say, Alex, you sent me the Nier music when I was telling you how much I enjoyed the Kingdom Hearts music. I listened to the Nier music, obviously without at that point having played the game, and I was like, I mean, it's all right. But then when I play the game, now there's like a meaning to it. I have a memory of it. I can hear the song at the amusement park. And I remember the first time looking up and seeing that dilapidated castle and the fireworks and the roller coaster and the weird machines that are dressed up like clowns. Like I have that in my mind and it means more. So I would say listen to the music on YouTube, but it's not going to feel the same as when you actually play the game. Trust me, it's very good. To this point, Alex, I'm assuming you feel pretty similar to what I do, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the music is something special, and it got a lot of praise when the game came out. The soundtrack did. I think the thing that I like about the music is a lot of it feels very intentional. Whereas, Kingdom Hearts, you have a bajillion tracks, but some of them are just like stupid riffs of like Little Mermaid songs, and they don't exist to move your emotion scale. They don't exist to add anything to the situation. They merely exist to make a bare bones setting that you are also going to pick up on that you're primarily picking up on with your eyes. So you're in a jungle level and you're in a jungle level. So you hear some jungle-ish type music. and that's it. That's the extent to which the music works. But in Nier, when you go to like the Resistance village that you initially start off in, not only do you see this, torn apart, these, vagabondish resistance fighters who are living, very strict means, and they have a hard time, but then the music plays and you feel like this hopeful, the lyrics of the music, the sound of the music provides this hopeful despondence to the situation. So it's not just that you are hearing what you see, but you're also feeling what you hear. And that's the difference, is that when you're playing this game, the music is designed so that you feel what you're hearing, and that also matches typically what you see. And I think that's the beauty. That's what I felt in the first Nier game, and that's why I can listen to the first Nier game soundtrack and feel attached to it. And I'm starting to get that same feeling here. And it doesn't just go with sad, it goes with happy. The first Nier game had this amazing sound. Anytime you walk out of the open field and you start running, it's this most riveting adventure sound. It's called like the hills of the, I forget what it's called. Something about the hills. It is just makes me want to run through fields for days. And it's all about adding that extra level of emotion to what you're seeing and what you're doing. This game does it in spades. So yeah, music, top notch in this game.
The combat, the reason I like the combat is because you can make it as hard or easy as you want. So sometimes, like, I don't like a game to be overly difficult. I don't want to become frustrated with a game. I play games that kind of relax and veg out and enjoy myself. And this game has the typical combat, like you have a sword, you go after robots, you fight them melee style, but you also have this little companion called a pod, and it shoots bullets essentially. And so you can do melee and shoot bullets. You can do those at the same time. And there's an option where you can have everything to be automatic, to where the pod will automatically target the enemy, will automatically shoot. You can automatically dodge. And so that makes the game very easy, which can definitely be nice. And the game requires, I'm on my second playthrough, and the first playthrough I did a lot of automatic combat. And the second playthrough, I'm making it more difficult. I'm not using it at all, and I up the difficulty and things of that nature. So it's everything that you would want it to be, but it's very smooth. It's very Kingdom Heart-esque. There's no RPG. There's no turn-based style. You can run away. It's very dynamic. It's fast. The characters move quickly. A lot happens in a very short time. I really just enjoy. It's kind of like Final Fantasy VII Remake too. Those type of games that they're just so dynamic, though, that is the perfect combat style that I enjoy. And sadly, I don't know many games with those type of combat styles, and the ones that do, they tend to be my favorite games. So that is a big plus for me. Do you like the combat style so far, the actual, fighting of the enemies?
So the combat in the first Nier game, Nier Replicant, it felt kind of loose, and it didn't feel great at first, and you kind of get used to it and you come to grips with it, and it eventually becomes inoffensive, if not, pretty good, depending on the weapons you're using. This one starts off at the pretty good mark. It's still nothing to write home about, which is odd to me because it's a Platinum Games game, and Platinum Games are the developers who focus on the combat here. All their games usually have great combat. Another really good game they made, I thought, was Transformers Devastation, which you would not think a Transformers game is going to be great. It's got a lot in common with this kind of combat here. So if you like this game, Adam, you're going to play Transformers Devastation for the PlayStation 4. I enjoyed the combat. One key thing to the combat, like you mentioned, the pod, is the floating robot that hangs out over your shoulder. It acts as like your third-person shooting. So you have a mechanism where you can lock on to an enemy, and you hold down R1 or whatever you set it to, and then it's just constantly firing these rapid-fire bullets at the enemy. It kind of helps you to weaken the enemy when you're doing evasive maneuvers. I like that approach. You can even take out whole swathes of enemy and upgrade your range damage, but then I kind of feel cheap, like I'm not utilizing the full capabilities of the combat engine. You also have these power moves. I think they're called pod programs, which are like big honking moves that you can do with your pod. Starts off, you get like this big, strong, piercing laser that does a ton of damage. I upgraded mine at the first shop I saw to this giant hammer that slams down and throws all the enemies all over the place. These are callbacks to the same thing that you can do in Nier Replicant, where instead of you having the robot around you, you had this like blood-bound book, Grimoire Weiss, and he had these like dark magic spells that he would cast. And so there's like the first tie-in that you have with Nier Replicant right there is, okay, obviously something's going on with the first game where you have all these combat maneuvers and moves that are from the first game. Now they're like computer programs here in the second game. But yeah, I'm enjoying the combat the more I get into it. It seems like maybe it is designed a bit too well for what you need to be doing. Like the boss fights, it's just kind of like slash, 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 dodge. So I don't know why we have this thing where you can, get different combos based on the timing of your attacks. But you get those, and it doesn't seem like it gives me a huge benefit, and it doesn't seem like it hurts me if I do the wrong combo. I just kind of slam on the square button and then hit O, or I have my dodge set to O. I slam on the dodge button before I get attacked, and that's kind of the way the game goes. You did mention it's not too RPG-ish. There are RPG elements. It's an action RPG. You got leveling up. You got skills that you can get in the form of like programs. You can level up your weapons by getting, random material that you get from the robots that you fight. So that will upgrade your weapons and enhance the damage and effects and things like that. One interesting thing that I just kind of realized last run I was playing in the game was the way you can upgrade your character is with these, what are they called? Plug-in chips.
Mm-hmm.
And so your character's an Android, and they have so much RAM available to them for these plug-in chip modifications. And you start off with like this full set of plug-in chips, and it's really cool because those plug-in chips affect your HUD. So you have a plug-in chip that allows you to see what your health bar is, which is like, okay, yeah, so this Android's running around, they actually have a health bar because they have this thing plugged into their computer brain telling them how much health they have left. That's awesome. And you get plug-in chips that, tell you where enemies are or where items are or the damage you're dealing and things like that. As you get through the game, you pick up more plug-in chips, and they have things like, oh, you get 5% health back every time you attack an enemy. You get 10% health back every time you kill an enemy. You have increased damage that you deal with ranged weapons, things like that. And it's just such a clever way of integrating these kind of like skills. Normally, it would just be like a passive skill you pick up and say, oh, I want that one, whatever. But here you can do things like, oh, I don't need to see my health bar. I don't need to see the enemy's health bar. I don't need to see my experience bar. If I can eliminate those things, then I have more room to add something like, the life steal with my weapon. That's such a cool implementation of this kind of thing. When I first realized what was happening in that menu, I was kind of giddy with the possibilities of what can happen. It looks like you can upgrade it to get more plug-in chips to work. And there's also the plug-in chip at the very beginning that's just your operating system. And you can remove that. And if you remove that, it ends the game because it kills your character, which is just cool and quirky and weird. I'm never going to do it, but it's there and you can do it. And that's awesome.
Well, speaking of that, and I think this is where I don't think it's that, I don't know. You can stop me whenever. So there are different ends to games.
Yeah.
And there are 26 possible endings to a game that you play.
Yeah.
And one of the endings, there are some that people call joke endings because it's not like a true ending. So one of those endings is if you remove that chip and essentially, you die because you took away your survival chip or whatever it's called. And then you get like a fun ending. It shows you the credits and it gives you some type of, funny little comment or something. And then back at your load screen, they have all the endings that you've achieved. And that's another reason why I like the game so much is that now I'm trying to figure out how can I get different endings. I've got like maybe 8 of them so far. So you don't have to play the game all the way through to get an ending. You can take out your OS chip, or you can, I don't want to spoil things, but there are different ways to get the endings within the game. And some of them are just like really clever. There are some things that I happened upon accidentally. And then I've read that there's some that you would just never think to do. You would almost have to be going to get that ending to do it just because it doesn't make any logical sense. as a first time player why you would do it. So it's just so clever. All of what they have done is so intentional and it's so clever and different. That's something very much I like. Have you hit any of the endings yet, Alex?
No, I'm not that far into it. I just finished the amusement park level. I don't know how far that is into it, but it's probably about 2 hours in. I don't feel like I'm getting close. The plot hasn't really picked up. I'm basically, as far as I know, the plot is it seems like these robots are having some kind of emotion or they have some kind of conscience, and the androids that I play as are kind of questioning, like, is there a conscience? What's going on here? This feels weird. And then a bunch of robots farted out a human, which is weird. Crazy ass game so far. That being said, I'm interested in the plot. I haven't seen any endings. Don't spoil them for me, man.
Yeah, so that's another thing, easily my favorite part of the game, and the reason why I think it's my favorite game is that most games. Okay, let's be honest. With Kingdom Hearts, it's it's a plot that kind of at points makes me feel kind of like my heart is heavy. It's mysterious and dark, but all in all, it's in this fantasy world. It doesn't relate to me as a person. I don't learn anything. I don't contemplate my own life. It's just in its own world. It's a fantastic plot. Absolutely love it. And there are many other games, not just Kingdom Hearts, that's the same way. Final Fantasy VII Remake is a fantastic plot. But Nier Automata gets to a point where it has put me in a borderline existential crisis because it is so deep and meaningful. And the more I play it and the more quests, because some of the quests, I mean, most of the quests, honestly, are completely optional. And I'm finding in my second playthrough when I'm now concentrating on the quests, because there is a point in the game which I wish they would tell you. Most games are like, hey, if you pass this point, you can't go back. So do anything that you want to do before right now. This game doesn't do that. So I was thrust into the ending without having any idea. And I had multiple quests I wanted to do in my first playthrough that I didn't do, which is why I wanted to do a second playthrough too. So now that I'm exploring a lot of the quests, there are just so many things that have really made me contemplate life and the way I perceive it. Like, I know it sounds cliche and maybe stupid, but it is unlike any game I have ever played. Do you get, I mean, I know you've, not too horribly far in. Do you have, like, can you feel any type of build up into something that is more, I guess, important and relevant in your life? Like, you remember when you played Crapola? I can't believe I forgot this.
Shadow of the Colossus.
No, it's
Rhyme.
absolutely not. The VR
Outer
game.
Wilds. Oh,
No, VR game where you're a superhero, you're trying to save the people.
Megaton Rainfall.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like you played Megaton Rainfall, and it made you, when you were in outer space, like realize how small you were, and
Yeah.
like there was a different meaning to it. Have you felt any type of build up to that thus far in Nier?
I know that kind of thing is coming because the first Nier game had that point where, I started playing the first Nier game because I was going to have a kid and just trying to put a reason to why I play the games I play. I was like, I'm going to play games that, focus on fatherhood. And that was a game I knew that it was a father and a daughter, and I was having a daughter. So stupid reason to start a game. That's why I played it. And that was my superficial thinking that, I'm going to get this cool effect. The game moves off into a different direction, and it does have this more philosophical ending that has you questioning things. And I could clearly see, everything I'm seeing so far in Nier Automata is like a better, more clear version of what I'm seeing, what I saw in Nier Replicant. So I could totally imagine how the philosophies put forth in Nier Replicant are put forth with a stronger case in Nier Automata. So although I don't see anything yet, aside from them questioning, like, these are androids. Are they alive? Are they not alive? What does that mean? What does it mean to be alive? I'm sure there's going to be some deeper questioning there, some more, struggling philosophies there, but I don't have really a semblance of it yet, aside from just you losing your mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely coming, and maybe it's because it surprised me, and it just came out of nowhere, and you know, I just it's just nuts. And again, how intentional they were and the way they built it all together. And so at this point, I want to mention something that I know Alex knows, so I don't feel bad mentioning it. But if you really want to play it, maybe don't listen to it. It's not a huge spoiler. It's not anything about necessarily the plot, but just the game in general. So here's your last chance. If you don't want to listen, you better turn it off.
We
So
love you. Thanks for listening to Play PS5 the podcast. All right, Adam, go.
we love you. Okay, so the game you mentioned when I started playing, Alex, that you have to play multiple playthroughs to get the total enhancement. You get the full feel of the game, which I didn't understand at first. I was like, "What the f are you talking about? Sounds miserable." So what that ends up being, which I know you know, but so the first run playthrough you play as the main character. Her name is 2B, and that's it. So when Alex mentioned you got to play a second time, I'm thinking, oh, dang it, I don't want to play it a second time. I assumed I would just play the same game and then it's a different ending or something like that. But what happens is you play as, so 2B has a companion, 9S, who joins you for the majority of the game. But again, you're playing as 2B. Well, the second playthrough, you are now playing as 9S. And the differences are not are 2B as a combat android, so she's much more into fighting. 9S is more of like a surveyor. He investigates things, and one of his powers is able to hack into the robots and kind of open their mind and understand them more. And that's where some of this bigger picture, more like life enlightening and contemplating stuff comes. And things that I've never played a game, Alex, that I like feel for these robots in such a short time. Like I felt things with like Kingdom Hearts, but that's tens of hours of gameplay. The first playthrough in Nier took me 8 hours. This one's going to be a little longer because I'm doing quests, but in such a short time, I have feelings for these fake robots as I do for real live things. It is nuts. I don't know if you feel that yet. I think you will. But that to me, the way they have built it up, the way that somehow they have I don't even know what it is, because it's not like the characters, like 2B, she's a total hoe. She's mean. She doesn't joke around. She's all business, but yet somehow there's like a human connection. I don't understand it, but it has redefined the entire gaming experience. And I'm trying to really watch what I say because I don't want to spoil it. I want to talk much more in depth, but again, I'm just trying to hold back.
We can come back into a spoiler mode of the podcast after Nier Replicant comes out later this year. We'll play both and then just really go through the story a lot, because there's a lot of what you're talking about is probably covered in Nier Replicant, and I'm forgetting it, but I just want to talk about it. I want to go into Nier Automata as fresh as I can. But I mean, I've had games that have similar themes to that were similarly affecting. I don't know how affecting this is going to be compared to those. Like Mass Effect, has a whole arc about robots and life and intelligence and consciousness that culminates into a really magnificent scene that has you questioning. I mean, I wasn't up at night worrying about this character, but you better believe before I made the final decision, I sat and thought about it for a second and thought, like, what is the right thing to do here? Even though it's not going to have real life repercussions, I would just like to make the right choice in this situation. So I could see how this game could present something like that. And I'm interested. This seems to be less open-ended than Mass Effect. So I'm interested to see what direction the developers
see what I don't know exactly the scenario you're discussing, but that from what you just mentioned is one quest in this game.
Yeah,
that's like the massive. If that was like the main thing in Mass Effect, that's just one quest here.
It's just one quest in Mass Effect as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is just, and I can say I listened to a podcast about Nier, and I haven't hit the final ending, but it has something near the end that is I'm trying to think if there is another game or another ending to anything that I could think of in my entire life that is more fitting for this game. And like, it's nuts. It is insane.
Probably Nier Replicant, but
oh, do you think maybe they do the same thing?
I'm pretty sure they do, but don't mention what it is. I don't want to.
It's incredible. Like, I could not, like, it is so perfect, and it's so awesome when you think of it in the light of how, just life in general. A lot of it maybe too is because I sit there and I play it at night in the dark, and so then you can think about your own life, and so a lot of it is more about your own mind and going there with yourself. But oh man, it's so good. So anyhow, I don't know if you want to talk anything else about the game. I don't know if that's enough to convince the listeners to listen. Other than fact, an amazing plot, great music, real fun combat. I mean, the game isn't horribly long, but yet you're definitely going to get your money's worth out of it.
I think certainly for anybody who's played Nier Replicant, they're going to love this. They've probably already played it. I really enjoy all the callbacks to Nier Replicant. I just kind of made a list of them real quick to add them right off the bat. I think if you buy the Game of the Year edition, which is like Game of the Year edition, you get the Grimoire Weiss pod, which instead of having the robot hanging around you, you have the book Grimoire Weiss. Of course, he's not talking this time like he was in the first game, but it's just that's who I run around with just because I like to have that reminder. There's also one of the plug-in chips you get that you can get right off the bat is the fishing spot plug-in chip, which is a callback to the great controversy that Nier Replicant had when it came out. There was a quest that got a lot, almost like viral levels of notoriety, wherein you had to go fishing, and it was difficult to find the spot. And the journalist who made the viral video just didn't follow the instructions and went fishing in the wrong spot. So now you can get a plug-in chip that tells you where to go fishing, where is a fishing spot. And it's just kind of a tongue-in-cheek jab at the old game and whoever the journalist was that had that horrible article that misrepresented the game. There's little things here and there. I mean, obviously, this is a game that's set far in the past or far in the future from Nier Replicant. I haven't decided which. There are the group of androids that are protecting Earth are called the Yorha. They have a striking resemblance to the girl Yona, who is in Nier Replicant. So I thought that was interesting. Also, all these characters have blindfolds on, just like Emil from the first game, who was a young boy who had to wear a blindfold all the time. And then there's also, you have this room that you sleep in, whereas in the first game, you were either a young boy or a grown man, and you would work alongside this woman. Now you are a young woman working alongside this young boy. So they kind of have a mirrored thing here. And the game very much has a feel of Nier Replicant just in the future, but a lot of the setting and set pieces are, identical or mirrored, which is just every time I run into one, it's like, oh, that feels good. Yeah, that reminds me. Oh, that feels great. So certainly fans of Nier Replicant are going to love this. But yeah, I can't wait to find more of those little callbacks, and I can't wait to ultimately see how both games tie together, if that is coming.
Yeah, I can't speak on that, but definitely Automata, fantastic game. Strongly encourage you as a listener, if you're interested at all, to play the game. It's $20 for the whole game. You get some additional add-ons too on the PlayStation Store. I don't know how long that sale is going to last for that price. So hop on days, it. Yeah. So that is Nier Automata. Maybe at some point we can talk about it more. I mean, I know this isn't a whole game podcast, unfortunately, but that will do it for episode 19 of Play PS5, the podcast. We've unfortunately did have given away the Borderlands 3. We do have a PlayStation Plus 1-year membership available, but it's only North American version. So remember that if you are in North America and you're interested, I'm going to tweet this too. Alex, we kind of talked about having, we did one giveaway where it was just tell us New Year's resolutions. Is there anything else you can think of that we would want to know from the listeners that we could use as a entry? Or could it just be, just say hi, just tickle our fancy?
Yeah. Tickle our fancy. We just got to get a list of names and we're going to pick somebody from that. That's the way it works.
That's it. And I don't even mean, we're very prepared here at Play PS5.
Yeah. Sorry. It's got to be a North American person or somebody who can use a North American code at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry about that.
So you tell us a joke, tell us we're ugly, say hi. I don't give a crap what you do. If you want it, let us know. How are you going to let us know? We've got Twitter, PlayPS5 Pod. We've got contact at playps5podcast.com. And of course, we got our YouTube, which is PlayPS5. Just comment, drop us a line anywhere. We love hearing from you guys. We very appreciate those who stay in touch with us. It means a lot. Until next week, this is Adam. That is Alex. Don't play with yourself, folks. Play PS5.